What's up, Internet? This is Strat-Edgy, and I want to talk to you about something that really tickles my taint. Microtransactions in my single-player games. What the fuck, Monolith? Microtransactions in Shadows of War? Now, look, I'm not a fan of review bombing, but WB has managed to change my mind. Fuck this game. Fuck this game and the company that shit it out. I don't know if you could tell by, some of the things I've said in the past, but I hate microtransactions. I especially hate it in my single-player games. Once they know that they can get away with selling bits of a game to people in a randomized fashion, and that not only will people buy it, but at times can make more money over the lifespan of a game than the actual sales of that game, they just can't help themselves. They can't help but tweak the systems in the game to prevent players who don't want to pay for things in game from getting the same items through playing normally, preventing players from proceeding unless they pay to keep playing. Every game that has tried this in single player with microtransactions has been an absolute grind to get to a point where you can compete online, which is the entire point of these systems. It's a pain versus reward structure. The player starts a game and everything seems okay. You're blowing through your content. Your character is strong. Things seem to be just going great. Then at some point in the game, BAM! You hit what they call a paywall. See, you get to a point in the game where it's quite literally telling you that you cannot proceed any further until you get those really hard to find items through random chance, which makes the player start questioning things. Like, how long would it actually take me in real time to grind for this stuff? I mean, for example, look at Galaxy of Heroes. Now, I played that game for nearly 2 weeks, had a good time, before I hit the paywall. And once I did the math, I realized I would need to spend nearly a month of daily play in order to progress to the next stages because I couldn't progress my character without shards that would randomly drop from missions. The pain prospect of doing this was far too high, so I quit the game, because what I also realized was that the game was too expensive as well. I'm not one to throw away my money on a random chance that I might get an item that will allow me to keep playing. But that is the free-to-play model, and it's fine in that respect. I got a lot of enjoyment from that game while I was dropping kids off at the pool. It's a really good game for backing one out, for gunning out a brown bullet, for cutting rope. In other words, it was a nice distraction for when I was growing a monkey tail or helping a groundhog find his shadow. But how will this taking a shit gameplay model affect the single player experience? Well, sport, let's take a look at the pay model for what the WB is implementing and see if we can divine any insights from the system. So what can you buy? Well, there's 4 announced types of items that you can buy to speed up your progress in the game. First, we have loot crates. Loot chests contain gear like weapons and armor, and of course it has varying variety and rarity, because that wouldn't be a gambling simulation if they didn't have a random chance of giving you shit items you'll never use. They also contain XP boosts, which means that you don't even need to grind out levels if you're willing to spend the money, so let's examine what this means for the game. So what's the point of buying one of these loot chests? Well, it's for a random chance at a legendary weapon or armor. This is a huge departure from the original system in Shadows of Mordor, where you went through the entire game with the same weapons and you upgraded runes in your character's abilities by killing orcs and captains, and so on, A natural progression system that was relatively grindless. Now what we're looking at is yet another Skinner's Box loot game, which will, more than likely, have a drop rate that is so low that you will feel compelled to go get a loot crate just to get what you need. Am I the only one who remembers what a grind it used to be in Diablo 3 to get even one legendary item when the auction house was still around? I remember that I played through the entire game on all difficulties, and only once I got to the final difficulty did I find a legendary drop. I had over 40 hours committed to that game and only found one fucking legendary, and it was for a character that I wasn't even using. What the fuck? This is by design. See, if you're making money off people buying a thing, it is helpful if that thing is so rare, the pain of not having it overrides the player's ability to resist buying it. You further compound this problem when you make the loot randomized in both the crates and the drops. You are stacking the deck against the player in hopes that they will spend more money on your game. Up second, we have war chests. These provide orc followers because apparently the Metal Gear Solid base building was so fascinating that not only did Monolith decide to rip it off, but they also decided to take all the worst parts of it, including the microtransactions, and monetize the actual recruiting aspect. Here's to hoping we can Fulton out orcs. So these war chests, they're used in the social conquest mode where you take captured fortresses and start building it up, tower defense style. Then once you do this, you get invaded and Big Boss tries to steal your materials without triggering an alarm. I mean, wait, what game is this? Oh, yeah, Talion goes into your base and starts killing your orcs. Okay, so here's the shit of this, the real shit. So now orcs are no longer ranked by, rank, like captain, war chiefs, worms, and so on. Right now, as far as I could see, they are also ranked by level and by rarity. That's right, rarity. I'm guessing that the rarer the orc is, the more resistant they are to attacks. So what does this do to pacing? Well, it totally fucks it up. Let's say you're the virtuous sort and think microtransactions are bad for games. So you look at microtransactions like a dog that just shit on the floor and you decide, fuck that noise, I ain't buying any. You go out into the world of Mordor and you do your thing, hacking apart orcs, collecting resources, and slowly but surely you collect a respectable army. Good for you, son. You done did good. Then you go back to your castle only to find out that all that hard work has been totally undone by Pub Stomper 1092 and his army of the War Chest Legendaries. See, I keep seeing the top comment pinned to videos complaining about microtransactions saying stupid shit like, oh, you don't have to buy them, therefore not pay to win. Listen here, you helmet-wearing drooler. If you set up a competition and give one side the ability to pay more for power, the competition part of the game becomes pay to win. I mean, I really don't know how to make that any more clearer. Then the next argument becomes, well, don't play the multiplayer if you don't want. Again, you mouth-breathing troglodyte, you are basically telling someone who paid $60 for a game to be okay with not playing a large chunk of it because it's set up to be unfair, or to stop whining that it's unfair and cough up some cash, or just be okay with getting curb stomped by every guy who spent $20 to buy his way through the content. Next we have boosts and bundles, which are just various bundles of loot chests and war chests that come up with an XP boost and shit like that. Which basically right there destroys the pacing of the game if you could simply buy your way through it. I mean, let's explore this, okay? There are some people who say that it is their right to see the entire game because they bought it. And they believe that they should be able to buy their way through a game because they paid $60, and skill and time investment shouldn't keep them from experiencing the entire content of the game. And on the surface, they seem to have a point. But all products are made with a purpose to them, okay? After all, do you write the manufacturer of your skillet complaining that you paid good money for this cooking utensil, and your skill at cooking should not determine whether or not you get to eat a good meal? You do? Who the fuck do you think you are? The point of this game is to be a challenge that opens up over time to new challenges. Let's look at the definition of the word game, shall we? I mean, the first definition that we see is game. A form of play or sport, especially a competitive one played according to rules and decided by skill, strength, or luck. So by definition, a game is a form of play that depends on competition. In the case of a single-player game, the competition is the computer AI. So what determines your success over AI? Skill, right? The definition says that there are rules and the winner of the game is to be decided by skill, strength, or luck. I don't see any mention of money here, but if we look at video games like we look at baseball, for instance, we are basically seen by these gaming companies as team managers. If we throw enough money at the game, we can win the World Series every single year without fail. But what happens when someone else outspends you and starts kicking your fort's ass? Well, you need to spend more money, friend. Every month, you just have to keep injecting money into the game to keep up your virtual ego and to continue winning against those poor fools who don't have the extra money to compete. But it is never enough. There is always going to be someone out there with more money than you. You get to a point where you're in a virtual arms race against Jacking Tafuda 1978 in an effort to see who could fill up their fort with the most expensive toys, and watch all the poor plebes struggle against the wall of money you've built. By this description, this no longer sounds like a game. It sounds like a rickety house that needs attention or it'll fall over, or a truck whose timing belt just blew and bent the valve and now you need to spend a little money from every paycheck just to get the bitch back on the road running again. Come on, it's a fucking grind, people. No different than getting up every day, going to work, cashing your check just to come home and feed your 5 kids by chewing up a Big Mac and regurgitating it back into their mouth. Except your vomit is cash and your kids are orcs. So if you could buy your way through a game without skill or strength or luck, can it still be called the game? Shouldn't we come up with a different name for these types of games? Yeah. Hey, you know what? That's a good idea. Let's try Casturbation Simulator. You can use cash to make yourself feel better in a virtual environment so you can spend all that free time you now have grinding in-game to, well, beat your dick like it owes you money. To beat your dick like it called your mom a cunt. To beat your dick like it said something anti-Semitic. To beat your dick like it kidnapped your daughter. To beat your dick like it set up a dogfighting ring in your basement. Hashtag Casturbation. Let's get this hashtag going on Twitter, y'all. This has been a rant from Strat-Edgy, and now that you've heard it, shut up and give me your money.